Let me say good afternoon to everyone. I really am delighted. I really appreciate the invitation to come. You know, when you get into a job like this, you have so many diverse things that you do on a given day. But this was really an opportunity to do something different and think a little bit differently and to, you know, hopefully put some comments out there that are a bit provocative. You all don't deal with anything that's provocative at all, do you? And, you know, to maybe have a little bit of an interaction if we have time for that. I want to especially thank Jack. I want to thank all the folks who are connected with Faith in Action DC, as well as the Interfaith Conference of the Metropolitan Washington area, for bringing all of the people together who are here today and for hosting this event. I think it's absolutely incredibly important to do exactly what you are doing today, and that is to come together to take on the tough issues that face us. It obviously brings together people across many traditions, across any number of faiths, and across you know, a variety of jurisdictions as well. Earlier this week, I gave my State of the District speech. And it was done at the 6th and I Historic Synagogue. And I deliberately chose that because it's the second year in a row that I've had it there. Because it really is an extraordinary place. First of all, it's in Chinatown in D.C. Secondly, it is hugely symbolic. It is a facility that was built as a synagogue. It became an African-American church, and now it's been returned as a non-denominational building. And wasn't that a great place, non-denominational synagogue? And wasn't that a great place, I think, to be able to talk about the pluralism, the multicultural pluralism that defines our city, defines our region, and frankly challenges us every day. They host, by the way, a lot of cultural and artistic events there, and again, have been wonderful in hosting me for 2 years in a row for where we are in the District of Columbia. And for me, frankly, it's a microcosm of what we face every day and a microcosm of what it is that you are facing and addressing here today. And to me, it's exactly what we need to do more of in the District of Columbia and across this region. I know that we've been diverse for decades, but we've been diverse in various, you know, percentages and various balances. And you look at what's happening in the city today, and we all do. And some of us choose to face it, you know, forthrightly, and other of us choose not to. We are growing. The population in the District of Columbia is growing by anywhere from 1,000 to 1,100 people a month. A month, not a year, not quarterly, but a month. Our population has grown now to 632,000 people. We actually have a population that is bigger than the state of Vermont and a population that is bigger than the state of Wyoming. And I often talk about it, Jack, in those terms of the growth. But that really is at the surface, isn't it? Because the population of the District of Columbia is changing more than in the numbers. It is changing materially in the composition of the population. And frankly, when you look at the racial and ethnic makeup of the District of Columbia today, it is quite different than it was 25 or 30 years ago. 25, 30 years ago, maybe 15 to 20 years ago, the District of Columbia's population was about 70 to 75% African American. And frankly, there were lots of African Americans, and I'm an African American, who took great pride in the nation's capital being largely an African-American population. And there are many African-Americans who felt as if the city was discriminated against in some unusual ways. For example, one of these days maybe democracy will come to the District of Columbia. You know, I raise that to say that does it mean, that's an interesting question, does it mean that the composition of the District of Columbia had to change? Has to change in order for people to be able to be in a position to make decisions for ourselves. I hope that's not the case, But I'm not sure we will ever know, because the day will come when we will have budget autonomy and legislative autonomy, and this city will look very different than during the times when, in fact, we were deprived of that opportunity. And it's an interesting challenge for the faith leaders in this group here to be able to figure out how we manage that. Multiculturalism is an inevitability, and I think it's a great thing. When I talk about one city, which is the mantra that I ran on and what I've continued to try to govern under in my 2 years in office, multiculturalism is good. It's the rich diversity of what a city can be. You know, if a city is unicultural, is that a word? Okay, unicultural. If it's unicultural, I think it has missed the opportunity for interaction that others actually enjoy. But at the same time, we've got to figure out how to manage that so that it doesn't create polarization in a way that people get compartmentalized in this city and don't interact with each other except in largely negative ways. And frankly, that would take us back to where we were. I grew up in this city, and I grew up at a time in this city when, while schools were not legally segregated anymore, but I grew up in an era when, you know, they were de facto segregated. I never went to school with a person who was white until I went to college. Never. I went to Dunbar High School, I went to Langley Junior High School, I went to Logan Elementary School. So I never had the experience. And then I went to George Washington University, which was exactly the opposite experience. And you talk about a cultural shock. That was absolutely incredible. I went there, there were 3 people from my high school, including me, who went there. And 2 of them left after the first year. They couldn't take the social environment. And frankly, I thought about leaving also. And I finally said to myself, you know, if you walk away from this, and by the way, I have 2 parents who never went to high school. They understood the importance of education and how to raise children. And they would have been very disappointed had I done that, but they would have supported it. If that's what I thought I needed to do, they would have supported that. And I ultimately decided not to do that, because I felt like if I walked away from a difficult challenge at that stage, that is probably what I would do for the rest of my life. And so I stayed. I stayed at a university that had about 12,000 students, and on a good day, it might have had 25 African Americans in the student body. Right in the shadow of the White House. And one of the things that I discovered when I was there was that the Greek system was completely segregated. And I don't know why. I mean, probably just following the traditions, you know, of the times and the day, but right in the shadow of the White House. And so I decided that I wanted to do something about this. This was my contribution to trying to bring people together in a multicultural fashion. I connected with a group, a fraternity called Tau Epsilon Phi, which is a national fraternity. And they were a group of guys who really were much more progressive in their thinking. They were, you know, from a spiritual perspective, from a religious perspective, they were well-grounded. It was a Jewish fraternity. And here I am, an African-American Catholic, you know, about to become a member of a white Jewish fraternity. And you know what? It was a great lesson in those qualities, as important as they may be, are not as important as being able to understand the human qualities that define every one of us. And it's helped to define who I am. And it, frankly, I think has uniquely prepared me to be the mayor of this city. It helped me to bring, you know, an appreciation for multiculturalism and an appreciation for the importance of spiritualism and religion in the lives of every one of us. And it's great to see, frankly, a group here today that is multicultural and multi-ethnic and multiracial, because had it not been, I would have been disappointed at whether this was actually going to accomplish what you set out to do. I certainly learned a lot in, you know, going through that time at George Washington University, and it really has helped. It has helped define who I am. I really came to politics much later in life, much later than most people do. I didn't become a council member in 2005 because I had spent most of my life involved in social services up to that stage. And prior to that, I had worked at an organization, Covenant House, Washington. Anybody familiar with Covenant House? Covenant House is a faith-based organization that serves young people who are homeless, runaways, or greatly at risk. And it is a Catholic-based organization. I know keenly the role that government agencies play in delivery of social services, because that's what I've done much of my life, as well as in the private sector. But it's absolutely important also, hugely important for us to work with faith-based providers to be able to get the work done that needs to be done. And I don't know how many of you all actually spend your time working in human services to people. But if you haven't done that, then I invite you to do it on a voluntary basis. Go out to a homeless shelter. Go out to a soup kitchen. Go out to a place that people who receive TANF. Everybody know what TANF is? People who receive TANF are trying to get their life together. And then try to figure out how what it is you stand for every day, how is it that you can use that to be able to make a difference in the lives of people. And I think that's when we will have found the nexus between our multi-faith approaches, our multiculturalism, and the practicality that people, and the pragmatism that people have to deal with every day. We often need not only the infrastructure and the networks that you all bring as a result of your faith, but also the on-the-ground experience and expertise that you have as a result of what you do every day. It's one of the reasons why faith-based organizations and faith leaders have to learn to work cooperatively across traditional religions. Isn't that important? Isn't that what this is about, Jack? Getting people to work effectively together. It isn't as if that one approach is better than the other to me. I think at the end of the day, and I've had people ask me this, how many gods are there? Well, how many gods are there? I thought there was one. And you know that all roads eventually lead, you know, to one God. That's probably a debate that we could have for the next 50 years, right? But the question for me is, how do you take the various faiths, the various approaches, the various beliefs, and blend them together in a way that really serves people better? When I came into office as mayor, one of the first things I did was to create an interfaith council. There had not been one in the district government for a very long time. And I really felt that our religious leaders had an important role to play from a practical and philosophical perspective in terms of how we conveyed what it is that the government can do to those that we serve. And so I wanted a group in place, and we've now put a group in place that really has helped us with our own moral authority and to make sure that we stay as grounded as we possibly can. I would ask you to join with us as you move forward. You wouldn't be here today if you don't have a commitment to growing this region and to growing this city. You wouldn't be here today if you don't have a commitment to recognizing the importance of religion and spirituality in the life of everybody. But that's where it begins. The real answer lies in what we do with it. Do we step up as religious leaders? Do we step up as people who are compassionate and care about people and take those principles and turn them into a way of life in this city that we can be proud of? A way of life that says, irrespective of what your means are, we respect you. We're going to find a place for you in the city. We're going to work to find housing for you, and we're going to work on the other side of this to get you a better education and to help you get a job. And we're going to work with you to make sure that this is a city that continues to be inclusive. And we're going to work with you also to bring democracy to the District of Columbia, because it is the right thing to do. You know, sometimes we smile and laugh when we look at what goes on in the city. It is ridiculous. It is the hypocrisy of democracy, as I call it. And frankly, that hypocrisy has to end. And it starts with our commitment and our compassion to people, and then it will end the day that when we can say that everybody who wants to live in the city has an opportunity to live here, and everybody who lives in this city can enjoy the same kind of democracy that everybody else in America enjoys and what we want for the rest of the world. Thank you all very much.